Hi, and welcome back to Nutrition Connection, the show where science meets storytelling. I'm your host, Dr. Kristen Hicks-Roof, dietitian, researcher, and lifelong advocate of the role of nutrition, health, and wellness. Each episode, I sit down with dietitians and nutrition experts all across the food and healthcare landscape, leaders whose work touches nearly every aspect of our lives. So whether you're a student, a seasoned professional, or someone simply curious about food, nutrition, and health, this podcast is just for you. The views, thoughts, and comments on this podcast do not reflect those of my employer nor the employers of my guests. So let's go ahead and get connected. Today, I'm really excited. I'm bringing on an AI expert, y'all. So even a lot of people have been talking about the future of nutrition as AI. Here's the episode. I have Raul Palacios. He's a DPD director at Texas Tech University. Welcome to the show, Raul.
Hey, yeah, glad to be here. I will say just as a quick disclaimer, AI expert is not a official license. So
That's
so we'll
true,
say
but
that.
hey, you got to claim where you have knowledge and skills, right? We are nutrition experts, and we'll walk through some of the work that you do in your role as DPD director, and then how AI plays a role in that. So, what inspired you, Raul, to really become a dietitian and want to become that nutrition professional?
Yeah, so my route to dietetics is really fun. So I went to a high school that had a lot of culinary elective type courses, and so my interest in food was already there. And when I came to Texas Tech, I actually just asked the advisor, it's like, hey, what's the fastest way for me to graduate? And they're like, hey, like you actually have culinary credits that count towards some things here. So let's go ahead and get you on that nutrition and dietetics degree. What that advisor didn't tell me at the time was that there was a internship component after graduating. But that was my way in. But I had always wanted to do something healthcare related. I had a set of culinary skills, and so food was something that was already very natural. When I grew up in my household, my mom cooked every meal, and that was just something that we did all the time. And so if I could find a way to blend food and healthcare, that was it for me. And then here I am now.
That's so interesting. You know what? I actually didn't find out until my junior year that we also had to do an internship. And I was like, wait, what is this? And it's not paid. Hold on. But you're right. I had that passion of food and health. And so I knew that was the route I wanted to go. So let's talk about your journey. Okay. So you decided you wanted to become a dietitian. You did the internship, and then what kind of roles have you had ultimately to get you to where you are today as a faculty member and a DPD director?
Yeah, so I love sharing this. I actually have my personal statement from when I submitted it to my internship that one of my long-term goals was to be a DPD director and to get a PhD. And I'm actually in the second year of my PhD program. So I got like one of them done and the other one's on the way. But along the way, so right out of school, I started working at a local heart hospital. I had a dual food service clinical role. I spend most of my mornings helping with tray line and production, and then in the afternoon helping the other dietitians see patients. Did that for a little over a year. Most of my work experience up until that time was all food service, so that was kind of an easy avenue for me to get into. And around the 1 year mark, a rehab hospital was being opened. And so I applied for the nutrition services manager job there, just like, hey, um, imposter syndrome's there, but I'm a big fan of the make them say no kind of philosophy. And so I interviewed, had a great attitude, um, and I was the one they got to hire. And so here I was at 21 years old, opening up a hospital. And
Cool.
that was just like a really great experience. It was a really great company to work for. Learned a lot about how to manage people, how to operate systems, both from a food service and from a clinical perspective. It was a small enough hospital where I wore every hat. It was very similar where I would fill in on the production side as needed and then see patients in the afternoon. And then as we got bigger, I was finally able to start staffing full-time the dietitians and then getting a supervisor eventually. But that was my longest tenure job. It spent a lot of time in food service management and clinical, and then along the way held a bunch of PRN roles across acute care facilities. I actually spent a year and a half with HEB, the grocery store chain. And when they opened in Lubbock, I was one of the first dietitians that was in store. And so I was just there on the weekends, seeing patients, kind of getting my outpatient counseling experience alongside all my other PRN jobs. I like to say that I've never only had one job in my entire working life. I've always had at least two or three, and even now, like I really do have three, four, or five.
It goes back to what we were talking about before we jumped on the call. We need someone to teach us how to say no. When you're a yes person and you're curious, it's a great thing, but you end up wearing so many hats. And shout out to HEB. If you didn't catch Stacey Bates' episode, she's with HEB. So go ahead, Raul.
Yeah, I was actually just talking with Stacey last week about something that she said on this podcast. But yeah, so spent a lot of my time food service management. Had stints here and there in inpatient clinical. Had my outpatient counseling experience. And then the DPD director job finally opened up, and it was a really great combination of things where they needed someone with food service experience. It's hard to find dietitians with food service experience because no one really likes those kinds of jobs, at least from other people that I've talked to. And so that was a great segue for me to do that. And now I'm in my 4th year as a DPD director. I still hold my PRN positions at the local hospitals to kind of keep up with clinical work. And sometimes it even works out where I can take some of the interns with me from our internship program.
That's so nice.
Kind of my journey up until now. And that's actually nothing about AI yet. But that is my dietitian journey up until now.
You know, I think it really is so powerful. And the fact that you said that you still work, PRN in clinics, because I remember when my academic life, sometimes you get so disconnected between what we teach and then what we're actually seeing in clinic. And that was always really important to me, like throughout my PhD program, I was being a consultant, I was a corporate dietitian in private practice and mental health. And a lot of that was because I want to make sure that the research I was doing in my PhD, so we'll dive into your PhD too, I want to make sure that it had clinical relevance, right? That I was actually bringing in this nutrition science to advance the science, but then ultimately be able to communicate it with the consumer. And I think that goes both ways. Like the stuff that we learn in clinic from people, you're like, wow, I didn't know they were thinking about this. Like, here's how we can have better information and education, right? So let's talk about your role as a DPD director. For those people who may not really understand what that is or what is all involved in your role, can you dive a little bit deeper? Like, what does your day-to-day look like? And then how, in pursuing a PhD at the exact same time, maybe give us a little bit of insight. What's your research? How do you balance the two? Because I do know that's a lot of questions from people who are interested in pursuing doctorate programs.
Yeah, first I'll give a shout out to your Facebook page about our RDs who want to get a PhD. Go find that page. I'm sure you'll link it in the show notes somewhere.
Yeah.
It's been a great resource to me as I was really deciding whether or not this is something I really wanted to get into. But as far as my job as DPD director, it stands for Didactic Program in Dietetics. It is the traditional route. In order to become a dietitian, you go through a DPD program and then you go through a dietetic internship. The DPD at our program is undergraduate, like most of them, although there are some now master's level DPDs, where students get their 4-year bachelor's degree and then we send them off to a dietetic internship. It is the best job I've ever had in my life. So fun. College students change so much every year. And even in just my 4 short years here, I've just seen how like every single one of them seems like a different generation, where they respond differently to different kind of teaching styles and methods. But it's a ton of fun. I teach the first of our 3 MNT courses, a few seminar courses, and then our food service management course. And then this is my 4th semester teaching our AI fundamentals course. If you've seen anything on my LinkedIn, I post a lot about that class. Because I'm really excited that I get to teach it to our college of future healthcare professionals. So it's a non-technical class. It's meant to expose students to all kinds of AI technologies and the like. But that's the job. What is a day-to-day? I talk a lot to everybody in and out of the classroom. But just my favorite part is just getting to talk to people. The lecturing's cool too, but just the conversations after class, people finally getting light bulb moments like, oh my gosh, like this is what this means. Or even on the other side, it's like, oh, like these are all the nuances of nutritional science that I've never considered. Those are really fun to get into.
That is, I remember in my academic days, I loved the light bulb moment, right? Whether it was a nutrition student or non-nutrition, they're like, wow, like this makes sense. Like I do love that. But I equally love, and you're still early, right, in your academic life, as those students start to graduate, I love when students reach back out to me and they're like, hey, this is what I'm doing now, or I see this job you're posting, I'm interested, or, it's so cool to just see how successful they are. And like one of my previous podcast episodes was Ashley Carter, and she's a former grad student of mine. And so it's always cool to maintain that, because ultimately our profession is small, right? 100,000 dietitians, and everyone knows everyone through one person or another. And so one of the feedback that I always used to give is don't burn bridges, because our profession will end up knowing. So one way or another.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can't echo that enough. Yeah, it's like the Kevin Bacon effect. Like you're only so many connections away from the next dietitian, for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's so true. So how does scientific data and evidence fuel your day to day, especially with the AI stuff, right? Like things are changing all the time. And how are you integrating science into teaching a course like that and beyond, right? All your other courses.
Yeah, so we need data for everything. I am starting to get into the scholarship of teaching and learning, so really developing protocols, and it's really hard, especially in nutrition, but also in education, to design things that are worthy of publication or even worth doing. But we need data for absolutely everything we do. I need even if it's something as simple as like my course feedback, like hey, like this hit, this didn't. I wouldn't know that unless they told me. Um, but as far as the education side is concerned, I never started reading education research until I started working here, and it also really worked out where my first fall semester was fall 22. November 22 is when ChatGPT came out. So the very start of my academic career really lined up with the blow up of generative AI. But I'm sure we're going to talk a ton about this. But my experience with generative AI is I am I'm amazed and afraid every day for all of the potential good that these tools are going to do and all of the incredible harm that they have potential to cause. And so that's also another reason why I'm really excited to teach this AI fundamentals class, because I get to teach students these things. This is very much a current event. I'm basically making new slide decks every class because something new has come up that like we need to talk about. Okay, let's talk about deep fakes. Let's talk about misinformation. Let's talk about new screening protocols that are discipline specific. There's a lot of talk from your previous hosts about like a personalized nutrition. What kind of data do we need to really personalize nutrition? Most of our models are very generalized and may be biased towards specific populations that are easy to study. And so then how do we personalize nutrition for underrepresented groups that are harder to study? Yeah, there's a lot there. There's there's so much to unpack.
No, I mean, there really is. I've seen, so over the years I've attended, I remember Chrissy Carroll,
Mhm.
it was probably like almost 10 years ago, was talking about some AI technologies before AI was really a thing. She was talking about like how to use AI with helping with writing, content. And then we went through a phase of like content consolidation, right? Where everyone was like short tweets and like little tiny posts. And now with these large language models and AI, you want long form content, right? And so it's almost like we're going back to our blogging days, so that way these language models can pull in more information and more research and more applications. So I think I agree with you in the sense of it's so fun teaching these courses and making sure that we are modifying the courses as faculty members, because our audience learns different ways, number one. And so I like how you talk about taking the course feedback and modifying the course. And then two, nutrition is literally changing daily, especially with AI and the future of AI and personalized nutrition and large language models, that we are going to have to continue to make education enticing and applicable, right? So because you don't want a student, I remember I was redesigning a course in So what was it? It was fall of 22, right when AI was coming out, and I ended up leaving academia in spring of 23. But as I was developing the content, the faculty were like, well, how do you make it non-AI? Like, how do you make it so they don't just submit everything on AI? I'm like, well, it's a good question. You're always going to have that challenge. So how do you balance that? And maybe this is good for you to dive into. Like, how do you balance for those who are maybe faculty or teaching or students on the call? I mean, on the podcast, like, how are you balancing that?
Yeah. So I do tons of faculty workshops around this very problem. And a lot of it is really uncomfortable because what generative AI has done for a lot of us is figured out how much busy work we gave as assessment. How much of it wasn't necessarily applicable to what they will be doing in practice. And to defend the faculty, it takes a long time to develop quality content and assessment methods. It takes a lot of work to make something that is truly assessing the learning outcomes and doing it in the right way. So from the faculty side, I totally get the lack of time to really change these things. But just some quick things, because I think the kind of education that is most at risk is our online asynchronous education, where we never really get to know people. We don't know what their voice sounds like. So it's hard to compare papers when we don't ever really know what they sound like. But I have actually done away with discussion boards in the form of text. So now all of my students submit audio files. And so even if they're reading off of ChatGPT, they have to actually read it. And maybe in the process of actually reading something, they might catch like, hey, like this might be a half truth. This is actually wrong, so I need to re-record. And I've actually gotten some pretty good feedback on that. Because now instead of just reading someone's ChatGPT generated post and then replying with a ChatGPT generated post, it's actually audio files of people talking to each other. Do they actually listen to the feedback that their peers gave them? I couldn't tell you. But the same is probably said for when you have to post and then comment on two others. I don't know how much of that feedback is being done. But the big part is really just thinking about what does our assessment look like? In our medical nutrition therapy courses, this isn't as much of a problem. In really healthcare in general, where there's an intrinsic motivation to, I need to learn this because I want to help somebody. Where in some of the other humanities type courses that are not major specific, I can see where the temptation is there. But there are a lot of different things to really think about. Even now recently, I don't know if you're familiar with the term agentic AI, but there are AI plugins and browsers. For example, I have two of them on my computer. I have a Gemini plugin and a Claude plugin that can take control of your computer screen and do tasks for you.
That is what? Are you kidding?
No. Yes. And so I do these demos all the time. I wish I could do one here of just like, hey, I want you to log into my Canvas page and I want you to go to quiz 6 and write my paper and submit it. And it might take 5 or 10 minutes, and it will submit it for you. And you can just watch it kind of like click through your screen and have it submit on your behalf. And if you're a student who's listening to this, please don't do this. So you are wasting so much money. You are wasting your time to learn, and your imposter syndrome will be even greater later because you never actually learned anything, or you didn't learn to the ability of which you could have. But agentic AI is on the student side a terrible temptation because even last year you needed to pay $200 a month to get access to that, and now in February 2026 it's free. It's just a Chrome plugin that you can go in and do stuff like that. Some ways on the professional side is I don't order my own groceries anymore because I use agentic AI through a custom GPT to get my family meal plan, go to the HEB website and order my pickup for Friday at 7 p.m. And so I have it programmed to, hey, just let me know when the grocery cart is ready so that I can review it. And then of course I don't give it my credit card information, so I'm putting that in manually.
That
paid for my own groceries, or I haven't gone to a grocery store outside of like to pick my own produce in a hot second.
It's so interesting. So one of the FDA priorities for this year is to have more regulatory action on online grocery stores, right? Like right now, there is no oversight in terms of what they put on it, which is different than when you're in a grocery store in terms of like what's on front of pack and what's on the labels and what's on the market shelf, right? In terms of like promotions. So, but man, I'm literally, my mind's blown. I can't even believe this. It is so cool. You said there's so much potential opportunity, yet there are serious watchouts. Like, at what point are we going to have basically just our own assistant, which would be great? Like, who can edit this podcast, automatically post everything? Maybe that's the future of that. That's really cool. I mean, I would love to dive too super deep, but we obviously have to be mindful of time here as well. So, Raul, you've done some really awesome things in your career, really going from the culinary side when you first started to opening your own hospital, and in terms of like being the lead, dietitian in the hospital, all the way to being at Texas Tech. So what professionally is something that you are most proud of, or you feel like that has had the most impact?
I'm most proud of the AI class, to be honest. I was, and I'll be grateful to my administration here, is that I got no pushback on do we teach these things to students. They're very much like, yes, like, let's do it. It was even more so like a why not, when I was expecting a battle. But really proud of that. I was also part of our committee. We now have the only undergraduate human-centered AI degree plan here at Texas Tech. This past fall was our first cohort. So you can now get an undergraduate degree in human-centered artificial intelligence here at Texas Tech. Those used to be only at graduate levels, and now here we have one at the undergraduate level. But also, it's hard to kind of pin this one thing, but kind of like what you said. My first cohort of DPD students are now professionals, and so getting to really see that. And there's a really special group of 5 who actually worked for me at the hospital prior to me being at Texas Tech. So I got to really follow those people for many, many years. And one of them now is the full-time dietitian where I PRN now. And so now like I get to cover her when she wants to go out on a weekend. And so like those things are really fun and really special. I look forward to being closer to your end when I finish my PhD and I get to mentor students. I can't wait for those kinds of relationships because I see it differently with professor and undergrad than it is with professor in like your lab. I can't wait to have like that kind of closeness with people. But I'm proud of my students. We have a great program here. I can't sell it enough. If you're a high school student for whatever reason looking for a dietetics program, please come to Lubbock, Texas. We'll take care of you, we'll love you, and we'll teach you well.
That's super cool. I love that. And, we also had Dr. Karen Bethard. She's also she has a director. She used to be a former DPD director. So she was episode 1, if you want to learn a little bit more about DPD directors. So, Raul, before we kind of move to the next question, can you talk a little bit about your PhD and how you're balancing your role with your PhD?
Yeah. So let me tell you, I'm not doing a very good job of it.
I don't think any of us do a good job. No. So I'm going to give you a little grace. It's very hard. A doctorate program is not easy, and it takes a lot of demand, personally and professionally.
Yeah. So I'm in, this is like the best time to record because I'm like right in the middle of writing my proposal. And I am going to, well, hopefully I'm going to say this kind of with a big asterisk because I've gone through two proposals now. I want to look at how we can use generative AI to help people on particular nutrient protocols. So my mentor has an app that helps people go on these specific protocols. And so to assist with that, I am building a bot to help them when they go out to eat to be able to be given the options to stay compliant to their protocol. Can we do that effectively? So that is what I'm going to propose. Again, we'll find out maybe by the time this is published if it's accepted or not. But I definitely want to do something that involves with myself knowing with my own study, how are people actually using this? Is it one of those things where like, hey, this is kind of cool and new, but ends up being thrown away because it's not something feasible long term? What are the things they like? What are the things they don't like? Maybe what are some features that I haven't considered inputting? I'm excited to know how people even want to be involved with AI technologies. Again, like it's hard for me to see beyond my own bias where like this can help you. Um, but if you don't want it to, then, well, then, well, then what good is it?
Yeah, I mean, to go into a doctorate program, you have to be curious, right? You have to be curious. You have to ask questions and want to know answers and refine those questions to then ultimately find a solution or an outcome, right? And so I know the app that you're talking about over at Texas Tech because I know some researchers over there. And so I do think that really can be powerful. And you're going to start to see more of these technologies integrated into all the types of decision making, right? Like even now, my Google email or my Gmail account, like auto AI generates, like, here's what this email says, here's some optional responses. It's like, what? Like, no, I want to just respond to my own. So I'm the opposite. I'm like, no, I want my own crafted response. But I do think for many people, like you're talking about reducing labor and reducing activities that you can maybe spend more time on other work responsibilities that you enjoy. So what suggestions or tips would you have? Number one, for someone interested in an academic role like yourself. And then number two, for someone who's tinkering the idea of doing a doctorate degree.
Yeah. So my route to academia was because I had a set of expertise that that was in demand at Texas Tech at the time. So find your niche, find your corner of the dietetics world, um, focus on that, and then market that to programs. If you're someone who really wants to help undergraduate or graduate programs learn how to navigate the private practice, well then start a syllabus of an entrepreneur course and then send that to program directors because you never know when someone might need an adjunct. And I think for most people it kind of starts there where you take an adjunct role, you might do it part time, and then something full time comes up, and it's much easier to hire someone that you know than it is to go through a hiring process. But that'd be my recommendation is to find your niche and learn how to market it well, even to the point of maybe even creating your own syllabus. Like, hey, like here's something I've already really thought through. Um, Pay me to do it.
And you can use AI to help build your syllabus.
Yes, gosh, we could have a whole day on how I use AI in my academic work. Um, I need to start recording videos. That's really what I need to do. But what was the second question?
The second question is, what tips or advice would you give someone who's interested in pursuing a doctorate, especially when they have a full-time career? And you talked about that you have a family as well. So maybe give us some advice of how you balance, how you manage it, how you ultimately selected where to do a doctorate program as well.
Yeah, so I chose Texas Tech because they were willing to pay for it.
That's a
So that
perk.
one was easy. The advice I would give is to really have a conversation with your family first about the amount of time that you think you need, and then probably double it. Because that's something that I would be farther along in my process if I had a proper understanding of how much time I really needed. Because most of the time, like, hey, like I have an hour here and there, but a lot of this work requires deep focus time. I need more like an hour. It gets me started, and I really need that second and third hour to really make progress on something. So find out where that bandwidth is. I got two kids, 4 and almost 3, and then the third baby coming soon. Um, I don't have any other advice other than I wish I could have gone back and done it earlier. But for a lot of us, that just isn't how life played out. And also, I would have never cared to do a PhD without the practice experience that I have now, because I can see problems differently, having the work experience that I do now, and even seeing like especially in the AI space, um, like I'm reading AI papers of people using ChatGPT 4.0, and they're getting published in 2026 when we have ChatGPT 5.2, which is light years ahead of the game. So how do we design studies that aren't bound to a model, but maybe to an idea or a framework about how we can advance a particular tool, an algorithm, or just something that's actually going to help people. Um, I think one of the very first studies that really got me into AI. It was this 2022 paper. It's called Acoustic Analysis of Type 2 Diabetes. And essentially, the study was these researchers had people talking to their phone 6 times a day, and they used AI algorithms, machine learning algorithms, and they were able to determine with up to 80% accuracy just off of your voice whether someone had type 2 diabetes or not. And for the
That's
research
cool.
showed like, oh my gosh, well, okay, well, like, how does that work? And I was like, well, the neuropathy in your vocal cords with long-time hyperglycemia actually changes the way your voice sounds at a level that like a normal person wouldn't hear, but a machine could pick up on. And he was even more fascinating that like, okay, the way it changed men's voices was different from women's voices. Um, so I'm like, oh my gosh, like there's so many things that like we would never be able to detect on our own, but because we now have the technology to do so, uh, we can start doing these things. So like, what if your phone? I think of it similar to COVID. Like if someone had an exposure, it would send you an alert on your phone. What if the device that hears you most often had an algorithm built within it to let you know, like, hey, like your voice is showing signs of hyperglycemia. You should probably get checked out by a PCP. Um, some people might think like, wow, it's awfully invasive. But then you also, those same people have never read the terms of service of any of the apps that they agree to. Um, that's a whole other topic about the differences between U.S. and European Union data privacy laws. Uh, but to bring it back, talk with your family. That's the biggest thing I would advise people if you do have a family and you want to do a PhD. Um, Sacrifices will be made, whether it's financial or if it's these vacations. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's
No,
hard.
I mean,
It's
I
hard,
think
and
it's
there's no way about it.
I think it's really good advice. I gave a talk, gosh, it's been so many years. I gave a talk about so you want to be a PhD RD, and it was really all about, or pathways to a doctorate. That's what it was. It was pathways to a doctorate. And it was talking about there's so many different considerations when you are interested in a doctorate program. It may be location, like where you are at, right? It may be cost. It may be the type of research. So luckily, under where you were at Texas Tech, you had a researcher who had interest in that type of investigation, right? And that may not always be the case. If you have, let's say, a specific niche in perimenopausal women and diabetes, well, you can't just choose whatever university. You got to find a researcher and a PI who do that type of work. There's also PhD programs and there's DCN programs or DRPH programs. So there's a lot of different options out there. I do encourage you to seek more information if you are interested in a doctorate program, because there's so many different ones out there and you want to make sure it's a good fit for you, because to Raul's point, it's a big time commitment, energy, resources, emotions, right? It is fully demanding for a number of years. And I didn't even have a family when I did it. I cannot even imagine me now with 3 little kids trying to do that and work full time. Like, I give you all the props because that is no joke. But yeah, so I think it's cool to see. And I love your examples of AI. I was just talking with my neighbor the other day. He's a neurosurgeon, and we were talking about like AI in his practice, and I was saying, oh, do you use the apps that you now see on a lot of these EMR systems where they just auto generate, they go in, they listen to your conversations with patients, and then they can auto generate the note. And I'm like, what a great time saver. But then how will you use AI in neurosurgery, right? Whether it's like robotic arms to help you with neurosurgery, can you detect different things? Like we were talking about, MRIs and CTs. Now you have AI algorithms going in and reviewing these that are catching things that a human eye may not catch, right? Just like you were talking about with the phone being able to catch the difference in vocal cords. So like the future is optimistic to me, although I'm a optimist all the way through, but it's also caution, because what are the privacy laws going to look like? All your information, I mean, it's already probably publicly available, but it's only going to get more publicly available with more, phones and cameras and you name it. So, okay, you're in AI, so maybe you're going to answer this, because 80% of the people who came on the podcast so far talk about AI and the crystal ball. But if you had a crystal ball, Raul, what do you think is coming next in nutrition?
Yeah, it's hard not to say some combination, and it's really hard to separate precision nutrition with AI. That's what's coming next. But we don't yet have the amount of data that we need to truly personalize nutrition recommendations at the individual level. We're still barely trying to do it at the population level, which is uh, you can say a lot of things there. But that's what's next. We need way more research. We need way more high quality research. And if any of you are listening, if you've ever been in nutrition research, you know how hard it is to even get quality information. Thankfully, AI is going to help us there too. Where now that we have computer vision technologies that can better track nutrient intake. Sorry, one specific thing I do want to mention because I love talking about this. I wish I had them on, but AI glasses are going to be the next frontier of data tracking, where what if this is just a what if? I know people are working on this now, but what if we no longer had to manually track what we ate or what our research participants ate? What if, and again, I say what if knowing that there are people working on this problem right now, that what if the little lens or the camera on the smart glasses could know when someone starts eating, record the time when they're eating, stop recording, and log that information with even up to 80% accuracy. How much better would that be than self-report or an ASA 24-hour recall?
I mean, it would be incredible. It would be incredible. A couple years ago, there was a venture capitalist entrepreneur who reached out to me as a researcher and was like, I'm trying to develop a technology that you would basically hook onto a necklace that you'd wear that would be able to capture when you eat, how much you eat, how many bites you took per meal. They could capture who you're eating with, the surroundings. And like, you think about the future of nutrition research, like we could actually have precision methodology, which then we could actually have realistic recommendations, because right now our population level recommendations are largely driven by epi data, which we know is so incredibly flawed. It's so valid or valuable, but we also know that there's a lot of error in that.
Yeah, and I'd be so curious to see how much would change if we actually knew what people ate.
Right.
In the right amounts, with all the variables involved with food. What if, and again, I say what if, I would be very surprised if we didn't already have this by the end of this decade. With the right things are coming, precision nutrition will come eventually. It'll come first for affluent populations, and it'll come later for not so affluent populations. And I hope that in the in-between that we could really do our best effort in ensuring that these algorithms reflect all populations as best we can. Because that's going to be one of our biggest issues, is that it's going to help. If it helps one group of people, it's probably not going to help another. And that's kind of part of precision nutrition, is that these things are going to help some people and these things are going to help others. Our wearables are already talking more to each other. The CGM can talk to your Apple Watch, which can talk to your Oura Ring. We have access to so many biomarkers now at an individual level that precision nutrition will be coming. And I hope I get to be a part of that. I want my name on one of those papers.
Well, and this podcast is not sponsored by any of those brands, but I do believe you're right. Like the future of wearables syncing with AI technologies and large learning models in research, you'll see this synchronization to be able to have that personalized nutrition. And then where does the dietitian come in, right? Of like, how is the dietitian coming in and understanding all this technology to be able to make more accurate recommendations, to really, I think we'll be more of like guides and mentors than necessarily just like a prescriptive, diet plans, which I think we've moved away from largely, but yes. I think you'll continue to see that movement.
Yeah, I agree with that absolutely. I tell my students all the time that a lack of knowledge is almost never the problem. With any kind of health condition, we have so many social determinants of health. I mean, gosh, that's a whole umbrella right there. But yes, we will be guides. We will be mentors, kind of similar to what we are now, just at a larger scale. But this is the call to action for nutrition professionals to be involved in the making of these algorithms. This is where I get excited to be on boards of apps and to be consultants to make sure that a lot of those harms that someone in software technology who hasn't been in patient care wouldn't be aware of. So having nutrition advisory as part of these apps is thankfully fairly common. But like we want to be some of those people to ensure that tools that are scalable to population levels can be safe at a population level.
Well, what an awesome episode, Raul. It was awesome walking through your journey and your career and some of your insights. I think we gave some really thought-provoking ideas in terms of what is the future of research and these technologies and how, maybe if you want to take a course, Raul has it at Texas Tech. And, I just saw that Harvard launched some free AI modules. So there are going to continue to be open access learning and even paid learning opportunities so we can be better understanding and really be at the forefront and at the table across the industries from health to food to agriculture to education. So thanks so much. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure you like, subscribe, leave a review, but most importantly, check out the next episode because every episode I bring on a different dietitian and nutrition expert to tell their story. So thanks again, Raul.
Thanks.